and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, and the founder of the Blended Pledge. And I am so excited to be collaborating once again with OptiLogic. Now, they are great friends of the show. Don Hicks joined me on Let's Talk Supply Chain. That's episode 376 if you want to check that out. But we've also created a really great series of LinkedIn Lives together. And this will be our third for this year. And we have had some amazing feedback. So I can't wait to do it all again today because we're diving into how you can accelerate action with AI-powered data transformation. Decision intelligence is increasingly important in this highly competitive, often disrupted landscape. But achieving the high quality data that needs to sit behind reliable, transparent decisions, that's the challenge. So I'm joined today by Vikram of OptiLogic and Andrea of Accenture, who will be telling me all about how we can start to overcome that challenge and make intelligent decisions that will help drive value. So welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for being here. So today we're going to be taking a closer look at some of the data strategies that could make a big impact on your decision making. From reusability and the big capacity multiplier to 3 key expansion paths and your talent retention advantage. We're going to be exploring how you can achieve decision-ready intelligence in your supply chains through AI-powered best practices. So grab a notepad and a pen or your computer or your phone because you're going to want to take some notes. And get ready because we're going to be answering your most pressing questions throughout the show. So put those in the comments. We also want to know where you're tuning in from. So tell us in the comments as well. We'll give you a shout out. We'll put it up on the screen. And if you're liking the conversation, you know we like a good fire emoji here at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So you can include some fire emojis in those comments as well. All right, now it's time to get to know our panelists or our guests for today. So Vikram, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself, your background, and what you do at OptiLogic?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Sarah, it's great to be on the show. And Andrea, glad to meet you here and looking forward to the conversation. I'm Vik Srinivasan. I head up solution architecture and new products at OptiLogic. I've been with OptiLogic over a year and a half, and broadly in the supply chain design and decision making in about over a decade, working with companies across various verticals and industries. And really my focus is bringing products that can help them address their data challenges, leverage AI, and come up with very simplified user experiences to ask a whole bunch of what-if questions across your supply chain and get value out of it. So looking forward to the discussion.
I'm looking forward to it too. Now I do have to ask you a question because I called you Vikram, you said Vik. Which one would you rather me call you today? Vik?
Vik is good.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm so excited to have you here because we're going to talk about some big topics today. All right, Andrea, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your company?
Hi, Sarah. Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here today, and thank you again for the opportunity to spend some quality time chatting about such a great topic. So I'm someone who has spent the past close to 25 years in supply chain consulting, but worked across heavy industries like chemicals, paper, metals, all the way into retail, consumer goods, and parcel and mail logistics. So pretty diversified experiences. Today, I'm at Accenture. I've been with Accenture for 18 years out of those 25. I'm the North America fulfillment strategy lead. And really, my role is to make sure that my team, my company has the right capabilities, the right skills, and the right partners like OptiLogic to really help our clients across industries rethink their network footprint, look at their DC capabilities inside the 4 walls and from a network perspective, looking at their flow path and inventory position, and really look at their fulfillment strategy overall. And as you know, it's a very relevant topic these days with changing conditions, disruptions, and so on. So that's my role, and very excited to be part of this conversation because data analytics is just foundational to what we do daily.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Now, I love a good partnership and collaboration. Usually, if I'm in my home studio, I've got a sign that says collaboration is the future of business. And we're going to see that transpire throughout the conversation today. So love a good collaboration. Glad we're here today. So today we're going to be talking about data. We're also going to be talking about AI and being able to make some good decisions. So like as an industry, where are we right now? Because I feel that we're in a bit of a transition period, right? We've got a better grasp on where we want to go and what we might need to get us there. But that is in contrast with some of the legacy technology and working practices that are still embedded in many businesses, and I think might be holding us back. There's cost, ongoing disruption. So what's your take on all of this? Andrea, I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to go to Vic.
Yeah, I think I like the way you sort of differentiate the technology and the practices, right? And that's kind of like what we feel, at least from my perspective. I'm a functional user of these technologies, right? I come in and my team use it and leverage it. So I think when I look at where we are today, I mean, we come from three very interesting waves of innovations that really impacted us. The first one is the cloud. Just bringing the data into the cloud. At this point, I will say that any clients that we work with have done that step of bringing data to the cloud with different level of maturity, but they build that data lake, and that really gave us the high computational power, so we can run bigger models, we can really solve for bigger problems, right? It enables cross-functional collaboration on the clouds. We're working together on the data, and we have better data governance. So cloud was definitely the transition time is a great check, and we love it. The second aspect is the open source language of modeling that is really becoming the standard language, and even legacy solutions have opened up more freely to those customization and the ability to go into the back and really build models and logic and heuristics and the way we make decision in a little bit more free way that adapts to every single industry and every single company. And then there is the last one, right? The one that we're all very excited right now, which is the whole acceleration of AI. We are seeing it compared to the other two. We're still in early stages. I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of opportunities there, but we're already seeing it in the way that is accelerating data preparation, in the way that's changing our relationship with the machine, the technology. And then, as you said, now we got to adopt the practices. Like we feel like the technologies are moving faster than the practices. So that's the exciting part.
The technology is definitely moving faster than the practices. I think it's moving faster than we can actually train our teams on as well. And I hope we're going to talk about that, because I think training comes into the conversation around asking better questions, right? Sort of that prompt engineering type thing. So I'll hold that off till later. But Vic, I want to hear what you have to say about where we are as an industry today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the need for resiliency in supply chains, and supply chain always oftentimes becomes the epicenter of where all the change happens, and it's kind of moving physical goods globally. And so with all the change, I think we're seeing within the customers we're talking with that leaders are moving from just looking at these long-term, aspects of the supply chain, but really more emphasis and focus on the short-term and mid-term aspects of it. Because when things are changing so drastically, it's very difficult to plan years ahead. And so the question becomes, how do I bring, the lines of what we call traditionally supply chain design, supply chain planning, supply chain execution, management, those lines are blurring. And how do we bring the right teams together to solve the problem in hand? And how do we do that effectively? And so that's kind of a new shift in thinking, and kind of breaking out the silos is where we see it.
Yeah, I think you make a good point in the fact that how do we think long term and be able to plan for the long term when everything is changing so quickly? What does that look like? How do we ask better questions? So I love that we've set ourselves up with the fact that, this is where we are right now. These are some of the things that we have to think about and what we have to work on. Now, OptiLogic has said that we need to shift from occasional network studies to continuous, always-on decision-making. And that makes a lot of sense with what we have just been talking about, in the fact that everything's moving so quickly. So what does that mean? What has been the typical approach to decision-making, and where is that falling short in what we're doing today, Vic?
Yeah. So if you look at traditional decision-making and the processes, they've evolved initially from more of the planning driven approaches, which had more rigidity and it was good for that, to now with all these changes, those batch driven processes and having multiple sequential steps and dependencies don't really cut it, right? You have a whole bunch of variability coming into your supply chain. There's a constant need to bring in the new business context that you're seeing. And as Andrea said, it's moving way faster than the types of the way that users are able to respond to that. And so the batch-based, periodic, project-driven approaches are probably safe to say they're gone. And now it's more about how do we take the same set of people, but evolve and allow for automation in areas that need to be automated and bring the right skills and personas together. So we're seeing data scientists, data analysts, modelers, planners. There's not a lot of rigid lines between them, right? So in the past they were. And so another gap we saw was that the capabilities need to be self-serve, and it wasn't in the past, right? So to answer a question, you usually depend on 3 or 4 team members to get the answer. And now that is just not acceptable. And so we're seeing that as a major gap in the traditional processes and how we need to shift to be able to answer those questions faster, self-serve it, leverage automation when needed, and then come up with this capability and invest in the foundation so that you or anyone in your organization should be able to come in and ask a quick what if question and get an answer, just like you do it in ChatGPT, but for supply chain design and decision making.
Yeah, well, and I also think that the sort of old school methods that we're talking about today, they're not going to help you sort of keep up with the pressure to be able to move fast enough in this constantly changing environment. And so if you're sort of feeling right now weighed down by some of the processes and the way that you're doing things, that's your first indication that something needs to change, right? There's something within that context that you need to take a look at and potentially see how you can do differently, right, Vic?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. We are having a great conversation in the comments, by the way. I think we're also talking about football, but I'm not entirely sure. I want to give a shout out to Mike DeAngelis, Mohammed, and Yathra over on my personal LinkedIn as well. All right, Andrea, I want to bring you into the conversation because I want to ask you, why should we be looking to achieve an always-on approach? What's the potential impact? If I almost think about that always on, I already think about the pressure that supply chain teams and leaders are already on. And so, when I think about this always on approach, I almost think oof, are we going to be adding more pressure? So talk to me about this.
Yeah, I think, in the past couple of years, I mean, the definition of digital twin has come so many times, and I think many try to actually build something around that actually real and concrete. And what we have seen in the past 2 years or so, we start seeing what the digital twin actually can be. And what I'm referring to is the concept of a simulation in the cloud, AI enhanced, a simulation of a company down minute by minute, order by order, SKU by SKU. So we're talking really a mirroring the policies of a company in the cloud and running it. And this is reality. We have been doing that now for 2 years and loading a terabyte of data, mirroring transactions. And that's the key enabler to me on an always-on approach. Sometimes this discussion, from my perspective as a consultant, starts as a project. Hey, I'm looking into rethinking my network footprint. And what is the best way to rethink a network footprint to actually run a virtual copy of my company on a different network footprint? And really measure the 2 scenarios down by the single order, single units. And then the next question is, we build this digital twin and is up and running in the cloud. Why do we want to shut it down when we answer the first question? And typically that's exactly how these type of projects are evolving now. They start with one question, they answer that question, and at the end of our consulting project, we have 10 more questions. So there's a ramification around the dimension of time horizon. So are we talking execution? Are we talking tactical planning? Are we talking strategic planning? Different stakeholders start looking at this digital twin and says, I like it. I like this digital twin. I have some questions. And so that's the always on approach that we start seeing, and it's been great. It's been great. But the technology behind is key, right?
Yeah, and so I think about my question around pressure, and you're talking about simulation and mirroring, and it's important for us to bring that into the fold because I think that takes the pressure off with the always on approach. Because when you're using tools like that, you can actually have them running in the background while you're going to do other things. And so no longer are we going from one thing to another, we can have things running simultaneously, which can give us the information that we need. But it was funny when you were saying that that people have additional questions. I'm going through this right now because I have a tech project that I'm working on. And I just realized yesterday I asked some questions and then they commented, and now I have a whole bunch of new questions that I have to ask. So it's great because it's this constant feedback loop, but we do have to realize that we constantly have to be in and part of that conversation to keep things moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love that we always in our environment we always establish in our statement of work a limit of scenario that we will run, and then we always look back and laugh about that number that we put in there, right? Because the number of scenarios, ideas that populate throughout an engagement and a project explode to the point that typically companies are understanding, I want this, I want to take it in-house. I don't need to pay consultants, right? I want to bring it in-house. I want to create a capability. I want to be always on with this digital twin. I want to learn how to use it. And this is real. We have seen great success stories. So this is no more a visionary theory.
Yeah, and Jonathan has a question. I'm going to ask it now because it's around what we're talking about at the moment. How does always on work for a consultant who works on a project basis and may not be around post project? And for me, I think it's that you're implementing those tools that they can keep going with, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's different angles, right? As I mentioned, we are sort of deviating from the concept of a one-time analysis. Here is your glossy PowerPoint. I think that model in our environment tend to become easily obsolete. So is right. So we are seeing the opportunity to deploy a always-on digital twin, and we are building a business around that, meaning that then there is obviously the maintenance of the digital twin where we can help, or there is the expansion of the digital twin to certain area. Maybe we were covering only from our DC to the customers. Now maybe we are going upstream to the port of entry or to suppliers. So there's that stream of work. And sometimes we actually run the digital twin on behalf of the client, right? So we are the center of excellence running and responding to those questions without having them to internalize that. But I think the sky's the limit of the creativity of how different stakeholders and different partners can work together. But there's also the model where a company might just simply decide to take everything in-house and grow their own capability.
And I think that's a great answer because at the end of the day, it's about collaboration, and you're going to have partners doing different things. And then also things are changing all the time. So you're going to move in different directions as well. And you need to be resilient, but also flexible to be able to do that as well. I want to let you know, I don't know if you see that QR code in the top right-hand corner, but if you want to find out more about what we're talking about today, go ahead and click on that as well as we go through the conversation. Now, Andrea and Vic, what role does reusability play in making the always on approach happen? How do you achieve that reusability?
Yeah, I think in my perspective, the digital twin is the foundational layer to become the way to reuse ideas and test it and keep working on the same model without having to rebuild everything from scratch. With that said, there is to me more a point around the best practices or how to make it usable, meaning that once I establish that digital twin, who owns it, who controls it, how am I creating those questions and prioritizing those questions and answering, because at the end of the day, there needs to be some governance around that. So that reusability is not just technology, but it's also governance and operating model. And then Vic, you probably see this also from an angle of data, right? How do we feed the data so that digital twin is reusable because it's always on top, right? It's always the best, latest data.
Yep, no, exactly. And I think from a data side, right, if we fast forward the last 30 years in 30 seconds, we went from these really powerful, rigid data warehouses to this overcorrection of data lakes to now lake houses in the middle, which I think we all love lake houses, right? And so the idea of having these the likes of Snowflake and Databricks and companies using it has really helped folks take advantage of data, semantic layer to bring the business context and bring that into systems like ours, where we can now add more value through modeling, through simulations that Andrea talked about, and keep that always on. But the key is we are dealing with global companies, and every model, every scenario has some nuances to it, right? What is working in a specific country just in terms of how you define your modes and how you fulfill products, and what's that overall network footprint look like? There are going to be nuances. And so what we've seen in the past is everyone uses those upstream data sets, but they create their own siloed workflows, and that creates a spaghetti mess of various workflows, and you're not able to compound the value of your teams. And so the reusability part really drives what we call composability. And what I mean by that is with AI, what we see is you can have AI help you standardize a lot of those things. It can document more things for you. It can automate more things for you. And so gone are the days where you're working in siloed desktop applications. You're in one central a cloud environment, and let AI help you with the pieces that humans are not the best at, and let humans stay in full command and control in terms of bringing the best business context, asking the right what if questions, layering the deep insights that we're the best at. So that's kind of how I see reusability starting to take off with cloud centric and AI driven platforms.
Yeah, such a great response. And I think, if we think about creating these scenarios and how do we use them in other places too, right? That's sort of that reusable aspect, is how do we take some of that data? How can we use it over here? But then also, how do we bring it together for collaboration? So on our last LinkedIn Live, Diana Orrego of Sancora talked about some of the challenges with data, and she shared that data preparation can consume 80% of the overall time on a new project, which is so shocking. I was so shocked by that number in our last live. Vic, can you talk to us about cutting that data preparation time down? Why is that so important?
Yes. So let's talk about why is it 80% to start with, and then we talk about why that becomes so important. These data sets, as we said, in a really perfect world, I would love to have all my data curated, cleansed, ready for modeling. And that's just never the case, right? There's data discovery, they're in different systems. And, now with AI and all these other capabilities I talked about, this is actually skyrocketing. There's more and more data available, and you need to find those, right? And there's identifying the data, cleansing it, building in the supply chain context, transforming it to models, refreshing those models and building those models, and then asking as many what if questions. And what we're seeing is the time is going up even more because we're constantly changing the question, the scope, the inputs to the model. They're not static anymore. They're highly dynamic. So you might have gotten a cost as of last week for a certain lane based on, say, ocean mode, and now that's changed. And how do you build in that capability so that you're not spending 80% of the time there, right? And there are ways that we can talk about on how we can address it. But if we don't, the problem is the executives in teams we're seeing need answers in the same day sometimes, or the next few days. And if we take about 6 weeks to go and do these things and then come to the answer, and then after that, the inputs and the assumptions have already shifted, now you're almost like playing catch up, and you're never going to catch up. And so that's kind of a big problem that would need to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I see some good questions coming in. We've got Jonathan, Arturo, and Tom. We will get to those in just a little bit. But Vic, I want to ask you, because we are talking about AI and automation today, how does that play a role in helping to reduce that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So AI is not going to automate everything. So that's the good news. But also the good news is it's going to automate really important parts that, end up costing a lot of time and effort for us. So the areas we see AI really play a big role is around the upstream raw data cleansing. So quickly identifying the data. You always, when you get a data set, you're looking for 25 to 30 different things. Andrea's probably done this in every project. He knows what those are. agents can do all that for you. It can be dynamic. A field could have the same city spelled differently or a country represented as USA or United States. It doesn't matter. AI will figure all that out for us. It can get us very quickly to a point where it's mapped that data, it's added the context, and it's built a model for you even. And then the next question becomes, okay, now that you have that, you're asking all these what if questions. As Andrea said, a very important point, we would scope out 6 scenarios, 8 years ago and say, this is the scope of the project. Today, we're seeing users run hundreds and thousands of scenarios. And the reason is because you could use AI to sift through the output and serve up only the ones that you need to focus on, right? So you're not having to go and manually go into databases and tables to understand everything. It can do a lot of that, cleanse up what needs to be focused on, serve that up, and then as end users, we see people get more value out of it. So raw data, model building, automation, model output analysis would be critical areas.
Well, and Andrea, I want to bring you into this part of the conversation too, because I think it all depends on who's also interpreting sort of the data that comes out of the output. So what impact can that have in terms of a team's strategic output and who's looking at it and how they're using it?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a couple of aspects of using AI to actually open up to different skill set inside the team that previously what we're seeing is that the whole data preparation, data cleansing was always contained to the wizard, right? The single individual, sometimes or few individuals that really know the data, understand the data, what it is, what it means. I think that's a great opportunity now with AI to actually be augmented and being able to ask questions of what is the data structure? What does this field mean? Can you give me an example? So the natural language relationship with database help us coming in from the outside help us moving faster and not having to rely necessarily to the single wizard, really person that owns that knowledge. And then obviously there are layers, right? Some questions will always go to the human expert, but we might be able to tackle and move fast from that standpoint. So there is the actual manipulation of the data, but there's also the understanding of the data that really can move us faster. And overall, as I was listening to this, I was thinking, at the end of the day, we're talking about speed, right? So we're talking about speed to prepare scenarios, but we're also talking about speed to start this journey. So when we talk about digital twin, a virtual replication or simulation of a company, half of the executives tend to fall off the chair and says, oh, this is going to be an enormous project, multi-year, multi-million. But actually, if we keep getting better on that data preparation, as Diana said, I don't know if you're going to always remove 80%, but there is a big portion of that work of setting up a digital twin that it's all about data preparation that we can cut very short and make these projects, just creating this capability way faster and make it more affordable for companies.
Yeah, I think I heard a sigh of relief collectively when you said that. Because we talked about pressure earlier, and then you talked about how we can reduce that time and, how we do need to speed up, but to slow down at the same time. And I think a lot of people do need to hear that. And also the taking on of that project, from a cost perspective, from an output, from an obligation, what that looks like. So OptiLogic, sorry, go ahead.
Consultants are optimistic, by the way, so they will always be.
I love that. Optimism is always good. So OptiLogic has talked about 3 expansion paths or value multipliers. Can you talk to us about these proven paths to ROI? Because of course, what we're talking about today, everybody wants to see that ROI, but I think ROI means different things to different people. So Andrea, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would like to maybe use an example in the current context. So where we've been very busy in the past couple of months. So anybody in the US in web or retail or e-commerce have been very busy responding to the suspension of the de minimis exemption, right? So that has been really a dramatic change because many companies grew and structure their distribution chain with nodes not always in the US. So think about Mexico, think about Canada, and so on. So our experience is that we have been helping some of these players rethink their network, rethink their flow products. And we did that using this new technology, using a pure digital twin, SKU level, order level, virtual company, and putting the virtual company ahead of time compared to the real company, because we can move facility way faster in a virtual environment than we do in reality. And when we think about ROI, this is where we're seeing really the tangible result and the satisfaction of our counterpart executives, because we were able to bring together point of views of legal duty structure. You have to structure your inventory silo here, create a bond inventory there. That type of design that is designed more from a paperwork, right, and legal flow. We brought that expertise. And then you bring more the classic supply chain net landed cost analysis. But what we were able to do by bringing all of this, we found out things that in the past were impossible to really measure, like fill rate. How is fill rate changing if we create different silos? If I stop sharing inventory between Canada and the US, what does it mean from an exposure of products to my customers online? Those usually typically tend to be very theoretical, very institutional knowledge. Well, I mean, if we reduce, probably we're gonna. Now we actually simulated through Monte Carlo simulation, and actually we demonstrated the number one problem in all of this was not necessarily logistic cost, not necessarily some of the duties, but was the impact on fill rate, actual losing sales. And so that's, to me, it's huge. That's the ROI comes from those analyses that in the past were very, very hard to do, very, very hard to come out with a result that everybody at the board level can actually buy into it. And it says, okay, how did you do that? How did you estimate that fill rate, right? And when you start bringing this capability to the size of the simulation and the granularity, you start seeing people that are not in supply chain, maybe they're in finance, they're saying, okay, so you guys know how to do math, in supply chain, right? So you can do finance math, right? So that's really being very excited when I think about ROI, the latest example that comes to mind.
That is so great. And I just wrote a comment down here, because what you were talking about is that ROI doesn't always come from where you think it will.
Yeah,
right? We talk about ROI meaning different things to different people. It could be bottom line, it could be time given back, et cetera, et cetera. But the other layer to that, and what you said, was that it might not always come from where you think it's going to come from. You might think it's going to come from one area, but when you run these simulations, you run these scenarios, and you're able to collaborate internally within different departments, it's really a light bulb moment for everybody.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because, in fact, I think in retrospective, running a simulation of a company is not necessarily led with calculating one metric. Like in the past, we would start with the metric and says, what are the savings in transportation? Now, because we run a full companies, then we observe from the top and says, how did it go? This metric went up and this other went down. So we can look at the whole spectrum of metrics, not just one calculation in Excel of one metric, right?
Yeah. And so what do you think are the first steps businesses should take to capture, that value on one or more of these paths? Because, it's all well and good that we're talking about the tools and what people need to do, but I think sometimes we get caught in that, how do I just take action? What are my first steps to doing that? Andrea?
So I will go back to a phrase that we used a couple of years ago, really when we were, I will say 10 years ago, when we started with the whole digital supply chain, and really explosion of analytics as a brand, as a concept. And we come out with a phrase that says, go small on big data, right? So which is basically saying, if you're still skeptical, if you still need to really understand where to start, I will say there is value in running a simulation, build a digital twin, even for a small portion of your company. It can be a single product family, it can be a couple of facilities, it can be a portion of your network. Obviously, the bigger the scope is, there's a multiplier value, but there is still the ability to drive opportunities For example, we have been talking to a company that grew up out of 28 acquisitions. So there are 28 companies, and there is a desire to bring them all together from a distribution standpoint.
Wow.
You don't have to do that at once, right? Maybe you start thinking, well, let's build a digital twin of these 3 companies and bring them together. And so by starting small, there is the opportunity to also be self-funding, right? So the 3 companies will feed the next exercise of expanding digital twin to the next 3. So that will be my suggestion. Obviously, if somebody has a blank check, I'm here, right? If you want to start big, go big.
I love that. All right. We need to bring Vic back into the conversation. How does new technology open some of these paths up, Vic?
Yeah, I think we hit on a couple of the ones earlier, and I'll add to that, right? We talked about the AI and the automation piece that significantly helps, and we're seeing our customers hungry for it, and it makes their lives easier. I did see a question in the chat: do modelers get a 4-day work week? That's a great thing to have,
please
right?
answer that one. That was from Tom. I haven't put it up there because I thought it was a great one, because we're going to get to all the questions in about 10 minutes, but please do answer that one.
Yeah,
I mean, very good.
Yeah, I think it's in alignment with, if technology, I think the types of the time spent would change, right? You might still, I can't guarantee a 4-day week, but I like it. I would vouch for modelers to have it.
We're going to call you on that, Vic. We're all going to go to, our teams and be like, Vic said.
Yes, absolutely. Because if we can have this always on, I think the time would shift more downstream versus like the data wrangling. It'll be more into insights, recommendations, taking action and getting value for your business, which is the fun part. And by doing that, if you can negotiate a 4-day week, I would say go for it. So from a technology side, we have AI that can do a lot of the work we talked about. But what's also interesting for you, if you kind of take a step back and look at, in a supply chain, the various actors that are involved in making a decision, all the way from the executives asking the question, the teams that go on and build these digital twins and models that Andrea talked about, getting input across logistics and inventory and all the different teams, and then going back with an answer. And then it's either in a PowerPoint or a BI dashboard that the executive consumes. I think that made sense in the way the technology was and how the landscape was. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the expectation, and I'm talking from the modelers, from the planners, from the executives, we all use ChatGPT. I think the chat box has unified our user experience, right? And the expectation is I should just be able to go and ask a question. I don't have to go hunt this down. I don't have to drill down 20 reports. I don't have to call Andrea and say, hey, can you run this extra what-if analysis and update the dashboard so I can see it? I should just talk and ask, what is the impact? Which product line should I worry about? When should I, go from 2-day shipping to 3-day shipping? What is the impact of these things? Now, the models have already been built, and so technology can help you with it. But I think a nice user interface is the unifying interface of chat, where users and executives any persona can interact, get answers. And some of it might not have the answer. So it might say something like, let me run this model for you. Or maybe it's going to do like ChatGPT saying, can you give me more details and assumptions and clarify? But that is where I think in a cloud environment with AI and models set up and digital twin setup and the chat unifying experience, it makes it really easy to be able to at least start exploring and answering those questions.
Yeah, but I think that also comes down to how you ask the questions, right? I mentioned earlier about prompt engineering. I think we do need some training for teams and leaders to get on the same page as to what those good questions are, and how we're aligned as a culture and a company on what that actually means, because there's interpretation of that data, right? You were talking about that PowerPoint going to the C-suite and then their interpretation of that without giving any context, right? And we're away from that, but there's still interpretation. There's still some bias that can be put into play. And so I just want to just give that a call out, in the fact that we do need some training around asking those right questions. Yes. To make sure that we get the results that, not necessarily that we're looking for, because it's not always going to be exactly what we want. We want it to tell us everything that we want it to look like, but sometimes it'll give us scenarios that we may have some bias in, and we need to make sure that we don't bring that into the interpretation. So I think that's important.
And just on that one, right, it's a very good point, is like these become tools and enabling capabilities, but I still think the kind of space we're talking about, human in the loop decision making, is what we're talking about, right? So we do want, like you said, the system prompts and the prompt engineering, that training and getting more folks access to that, but also demystifying the assumptions and having experts in the room to clarify things and add the value to it. Because you have to take AI with a grain of salt, right? And that's why I think the human in the loop is going to be very important in these experiences versus everyone just in their own rooms getting answers and making decisions in a siloed way. That also is a dangerous play. It's about how do we all come together so we're talking the same language.
Yeah, so true. Now, I want to get to the retention part of this conversation because you just talked about the human side of things. So let's get to that. And then in about 5 minutes, we're going to get to all of your questions. We've got some really great questions in there. I want to give a shout out to your logistics coach over on Instagram, who's watching it over on our Instagram, which is awesome. So we're going to get to those in about 5 minutes. So if you do have any questions, make sure to put those in the comments because we do want to get to those before the end of the show. So technology is obviously key to innovation and helping to move the industry forward, but so are people, right? And talent shortages are an issue right now, or whether we're talking about technology, frontline, et cetera, et cetera. So Vic, how can leaders leverage cutting edge tools as a strategy to attract and retain talent in a competitive market? Because I would assume that some of the tools and strategies that we're talking about today are going to be really positive and really exciting to those looking to work with companies who are taking that on. So Vic, let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we, at OpLogic and maybe even Accenture with Andrea, we've all gone through that path very recently with AI, right? We had to have hackathons and create a culture of like everyone and being encouraged to build your own AI agent, to run, a different model with it. And it could be a simple task too. And I think it starts with the culture, right? So the culture of let's not get spooked by AI. Let's embrace it. Let's build things where you get access to it easily. Let's fund programs to do that. Let's make it fun. Let's make it a lot of fun. Like we ran a recent hackathon, and I was surprised to see 20 different projects with a mix of machine learning AI agents from folks who have not built or written code, but used technology that can help them and partnered with data scientists and coders, right? And so the idea of, I think, culture and fun is a critical aspect and kind of funding programs to get them to do that. But also, again, getting them closer to the actual business problem, because the more they see that the number of questions that they have to ask and answer for the business to just be competitive is skyrocketed, that the value of the work that your teams are doing and embracing it puts the company forward to be able to do that and be successful. So once they see that and they know their direct impact of their work, they're going to be leaning in and doing a lot of the things on automating things versus worrying about what will happen to my role. It's more about, hey, the company's winning. We're going to go figure out ways to help that initiative, and we're directly all contributing to it, and we're able to be competent in the ever-changing landscape.
Yeah, I think one important point to note, though, too, is that we want to make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to test and fail fast, right? If we're asking the wrong questions, we need to tweak how we're asking the questions or things like that. I think we need to make sure that it's a safe environment for people to try things out, see what works, what doesn't work. And that's a different, sort of mindset and culture. And I just wanted to call that out because I think if we are going to retain it, it's exciting to have these tools. But we also have to have the culture and the environment because any transformation is only 20% technology. So Andrea, I want to bring you into this. How can what Vic is talking about be translated to competitive advantage on a business level?
Yeah, I love the whole, going back to the human side of all of this, right? So to me, the competitive advantage will come to the players that have this great digital twins capability, but in reality, all these capabilities are leveraged and maintained and controlled by a strong team of people that are excited using it. And I think right now what we're seeing on my side is that junior resources, when they get exposed to this type of technology, they get very excited. And if they can find a way to learn and train on it, they just go through all that material very fast. They want to really be part of this sort of AI-driven transformation. So to me, the competitive advantage will come to the company can really bring that team, successful team that can very fast, very independently set up these capabilities, build the agents, analyze these scenarios, and help the leaders make decision faster. To me, comes from that core team.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick reminder before we go to all your questions, the QR code in the top right-hand corner, go ahead and give that a click because you're going to want to go and learn more about DataStar and some of the things that we've been talking about today. All right, Arturo, Andrea, how do you set the scope of digital twins? The more complete, the more challenging to maintain.
Yeah, I think definitely I will say the scope can be pretty broad. At the end of the day, we have done digital twins all the way from the supplier door in can be even offshore, all the way to the delivery points. And I think really I will start with the use case. Rather than worry too much about the complexity. The complexity at the end of the day will be automated, and even with a little bit of effort can be automated. Preparing 1,000 orders, customer orders in a simulation is as difficult as preparing 25 million orders, and I can tell from experience, right? So once the engine, the rules are built, as you said earlier, let the cloud do its thing, while we are worried about something else, right? So to me, the key is about setting the boundaries, what the use case is and where really the value is. If certain decisions are pretty much fixed for now, they're not going to be changed for some time, then there is no need to extend the digital twin in areas that, for whatever reason, are not addressable or not a priority, and that can help a little bit reduce the size of the problem and the maintenance and so on. So I will be business led more than data worried. Let's put it that way.
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you so much, Arturo. And then we've got Haley. Can machine learning or AI help fill data gaps? For example, transportation rates or inventory holding costs. Vic, that one might be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely can leverage machine learning, AI, and a whole bunch of capabilities to fill data gaps. We are actually working on a few of these AI agents that do exactly that in terms of transportation rates and inventory holding cost and others. The key here is that there will be assumptions that you would have to make, but when you can leverage the data, say a transportation rate cost that you want to try for a new lane that you never shipped, and you can't go to market and get the rates yet. There's a lot in the current data that we have and data outside that we can marry to impute those costs, to use regression and machine learning capabilities to find those costs for us. And also use AI to go and scrape and fetch the cost for us in areas of sources that we have available and access to as well. So definitely an area that we're seeing a big uptick in requirements around filling data gaps, imputing costs, and getting us to a quick, feasible model without driving to perfection from the get-go.
Awesome. Great question, Haley. And if anybody else has any other questions, now's the time to put it in there because we only have a couple more minutes to be able to address those. Now, Tom had a question about dynamic Google Docs with multiple people inputting. Can it be used as an input versus static Excel docs? Vic, is that one for you, or maybe it's for Andrea? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can take a pass at it, and Andrea, feel free to chime in.
Okay.
So Google Docs, absolutely, right? Direct connectors to Google Docs. Everything is in the cloud, API integrated between Google and our platform. And so I love the idea, Tom, of like users, multiple users. That's a critical word there. Like instead of having your own Excel workbooks, multiple users in Google Docs, having different sheets, and being able to push or publish their or commit their data back into a model is definitely what we offer and able to support. And we're seeing users do that. And then moving it back, right? So if you need to disseminate that information to a wider audience, you can take any aspect of the model output, simplify that in terms of what you really want to hone in on. If it's a product manager who cares only about a certain category, or an executive who wants to see the overall OTIF or the cost impact, you can simplify those and kind of disseminate it back through Google Sheets as well.
Awesome. Andrea, do you have anything to add to that?
I think anything that is cloud based and collaborative will always be the static files. So for sure, I will always lead toward that direction. And in the case of OptiLogic, actually collaboration on tables can be done directly into the platform. So we do that quite daily. We have teams working on the same model, on the same table, on the same platform. Absolutely, I mean, to me, it goes back to that revolution of the cloud. Let's all work together on one single data source.
Yeah, I love it. No longer are we downloading and uploading and asking each other what version we're on, right?
Yes, we don't want to do that anymore. No more static files and attachments, please.
We absolutely don't. We absolutely don't. All right. So to wrap up, I've got a couple of questions for you. I want to look into, I mean, listen, I don't think any of us have a crystal ball right now, but I do, we're at the end of 2025. We're heading into a brand new year. What do you think teams should go into 2026 doing or thinking about, or maybe taking first steps on? Andrea, I'm going to ask you first, and then Vic, I'll have you follow up.
I think from a supply chain analytics perspective, we have to balance the wave of solutions that keep coming at us, which is great. So there's a lot of startup, a lot of ideas, but it can become overwhelming, right? So I think balance that and being able to filter out what is real and what is still sort of try to be sorted out and play the wave of AI. I think is going to be the biggest challenge of 2026. In my position, as I mentioned, I'm an observer of potential partners, potential solutions, and we see new companies doing things like every other week, new brands and so on. So I think that can be challenging. So I think balancing the discovery piece, because we all know that there is sort of a gold rush in the AI, and we're going to see some very cool things coming out for sure. But on the other side, don't be overwhelmed by the river while you're looking for the gold, right? Just try to find your little pond.
Yeah, the peer pressure, Andrea, I think is what you're getting at, in the fact that things are moving really fast, but you want to make sure that you're not overwhelming yourself and your teams. And I think we're all kind of guilty of that, no matter what industry we're in. There's so many great things that we can do and offer and make an impact. And it's not with bad intentions, it's with good intentions. But sometimes we get a little bit too far ahead of ourselves.
Yep, absolutely. All
right, Vic, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, 2 points, right? One is going back to that culture. Like, change is hard. It's going to be difficult. Sarah, you said, like, the environment to fail fast, safely, it's okay. But take that first step. Embrace it. There's a lot it can do, and there's a lot. We are in the human in the loop decision making. So we still would have to provide the necessary context and help. But there are a lot of AI agentic work that is happening. And I would say, embrace it. Take a small problem and start with a team and bring a cross-functional team. That's the critical piece with different skill sets. And AI helps you do that. And then in terms of the value itself, like, pick a high frequency, well-known use case, and then start with that, right? Because we could go after many problems that serve up, but really pick the one that, you have a good amount of data for it. People are aware of the context in it, but it's highly valuable to automate and get there. And that would unlock a significant other set of projects. Just like we talked about, one question unlocks 25 questions. One successful project will unlock 25 more initiatives. Good problem to have, in my view. So let's go embrace that and have fun. That's my, I've always believed that innovation or change and all that, we're going to ride the wave, but we're going to have fun with it, so that, everyone, especially the younger generation, can, who are coming in with a lot of this technology skill set, can see how they can impact the business top line.
Vic, you're speaking my language. 4-day work week and having fun while you're working in supply chain. I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. We got one more question for each of you. What advice would you give to leaders looking to leverage AI in the most effective ways to accelerate action and make better decisions? Before you say anything, I think for me, I really want to put the emphasis on training and making sure your teams know how to use the tools and ask the right questions. And I hope I didn't take your answer, but I really wanted to jump in there with that one. Andrea, we'll start with you, and then Vic will end with you.
From my perspective, I keep repeating the phrase of don't let perfection be enemy of good. We often discuss about these capabilities with companies, and one of the first answer is our data is too bad to do something like this. And while there is no harm of continuing the data journey, and that's very complex, it can go all the way into ERP transformation and so on. What we typically discover is that concern really covers 20% of your data, but there is a core 80% that doesn't stop you to run your business, right? I mean, your business is running, you're fulfilling order, you're serving clients, so you do have the data that you need, and you do have some gaps. And so what my message is always, let's look into it. You might want to start experimenting, start understanding what these technologies can do for you, because maybe you are making too many decisions based on institutional knowledge. You can have more help from data, and it's never a 100% data, will never be, but maybe you're a little bit more relying on intuition rather than be data driven. So that's my message.
Yeah, progress over perfection, everybody. All right, Vic, last word. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I think, to your point about training in AI, I personally, if I have a question nowadays, I go and try to get a quick answer in a self-serve way, right? And I do talk to the experts who'd have much more deeper insights, but starting with being able to democratize that training and get more people comfortable with this sort of where we're at with the technology landscape. That's number one. Like, without that, it's going to be hard for folks to lean in, and then incentivizing them to understand, by doing that shift, what it would unlock. So whether it's a project that's ongoing, don't maybe put them on the most high deadline project where you can experiment and you probably want to do things that you've done in the past, but really come up with ways you can create that culture where you have initiatives and incentives where these folks can come in and start driving it. And technology-wise, I'd say 8 months ago, I would say like things were getting started. At this point, I'd say for supply chain use cases, things are getting solidified. We do have a lot of ways to jumpstart you into these processes. You don't have to start from scratch. Gone are the days where you have to go figure everything out and start from scratch. We can help you with a lot of that, jumpstart you through templates, get you to a peer group or a community who have done this, and share some of those best practices and get you going from the get-go versus you having to figure everything out from scratch.
That's great. Well, that's all the time we have for the discussion today. We had great engagement in the comments. I hope all of you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining us. We still face so many challenges as an industry, but I think it's been really great to hear how organizations can make better decisions and drive value. I think by evaluating more options and leveraging transformed infrastructures and new technologies, not only can they make better decisions, but they can make them at speed and scale. And that really is priceless. So if you're looking for a partner to help you leverage powerful data strategies so you can shift from occasional network studies to continuous, always-on decision-making, check out optilogic.com. Make sure to grab that QR code before we go. I want to give a big thank you to Vic and Andrea for joining me today, and to your teams for making this happen, to my team in the background as well. And I cannot wait to do this again. So I'll see you all again soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.